everyone. So nice to see you all here. Thanks for coming. I'm happy to be here. And talking about getting a move on, about expanding public transit in BC and in our area. I actually like to ride the bus. I like to see my neighbors. I like to relax and not have to drive. I like not having to park, for example, or deal with traffic. I like riding the bus, and it feels social to me. I don't do it very often. It's not convenient, not at all. Today I wanted to come here by bus. I would have gotten here over 2 hours before the event started, and I would have had to leave before the event ended, because those are the only buses that were here. There's not enough buses. There's not enough service to make it convenient. So often we don't take it. So we launched this, we've been working to get and I'm going to tell you about it, what we can do to get a move on, to get more public transit in the rest of BC. We know that the Lower Mainland and in Vancouver, they have excellent transit, and it's very well used. And it's a wonderful thing. But getting to Vancouver on a bus, that's another matter. So imagine what we could do, this kind of system we could have, if we had a daily or a very regular, inexpensive, full coach trip, a public coach service to Vancouver, and networks that you could get to Kelowna or Cranbrook or Calgary, to airports, to Prince George. You could get around BC. You can't get around BC right now without a car, and it's very expensive. So we'd like to have that. And imagine if you could get back and forth within the Kootenays in our area very easily. If you want to go to Argenta, there's a once-a-week bus. And Castle, I forget, I think it's 3 times a week, but the service is terrible. Sometimes you can get there, but you can't get back. You know, it's inconvenient. So we need a lot more local buses too, and I'm going to talk about how we can do that, and it's not easy, unfortunately. We're stuck. We're stuck. We think that when you start your day, the first thing you do is go out and get in the car. That's what we do. And we've got to move past that. It creates a lot of emissions. It's very expensive for all of our families. The average Canadian family spends $10,000 a year on car travel, on cars and insurance and all that. And a lot of families have 2 cars. There's a bit of embodied carbon there. Talk about embodied carbon. But also, not everybody drives. Young people don't drive. Older people can't drive anymore. Some infirm people can't drive, and some people can't afford a car. Lots of people can't afford a car. They become second-class citizens. They're disadvantaged in our society to get around. There's a lot of people can't go and visit their grandchildren because there's no bus. It's very difficult to do that kind of thing. And if we had a bus system, we could get unstuck. I'll keep going. We can afford a full bus system in BC. The BC Federation of Labour funded Mark Lee, an economist with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, to do a feasibility study on how we could bring in and how much it would cost to have a full connected BC bus network. He did it, and he talked a lot about the number of jobs that could be created and some of the advantages of it, but it would cost about $15 billion over 10 years. That was the bottom line. And it's a lot of money. It wouldn't be cheap, but it would be built, and it'd still cost to operate it. It would still be expensive, but it could work. You have to realize, though, that the cost of building one freeway interchange, a flyover and an overpass like a big one on Highway 1, might be $1 billion. One. The Massey Tunnel expansion to make more cars going under the Fraser River, $4.5 billion. Over the next 3 years, the BC government almost is booked to spend nearly $15 billion on building roads and structure for cars. So we need to divert some of that money and put more into building a transit system for all of us. And we can do that. And there's some optimistic signs I'll tell you about. There's a movement for buses. It's a grassroots movement, and it's all over Canada, and it's all over BC. The OTAs, the Okanagan Transit Alliance, they're a very active group. There's Better Transit Alliance of Greater Victoria, movements in Vancouver. Let's Ride BC-wide, they're very specific about getting intercity buses so that you can get around the province, and Better Island Transit. So there is a lot of action and grassroots movement, and that's what it's going to take. A lot of people talking about expanding public transit and making it more affordable. So I'm happy that we're part of it. We're trying to do our small part here with West Kootenay Transit Action, and I'm going to tell you more about that too. Transit is an obvious climate solution. It's a very valuable thing to do. You can take 20 people out of cars, their own cars, and put them in one diesel bus, and you're saving a lot of emissions. If you make an electric bus, even better. It can make it a lot of affordability, and it's just fair if you give everybody a chance to get around. Now, we have local governments are responsible for managing our transit systems. The City of Nelson, City of Castlegar, and the Regional District, they administer the local transit, and they do it in conjunction with BC Transit. The local governments have to come up with half the money. That includes the fares, but it's half the money. And then usually BC Transit, it's about a 50-50 formula, not quite exactly. And the BC Transit and the province comes up with about half. What that formula does is paralyzes any expansion. For I don't know how many years, people have been advocating for a new bus route running from Nelson to the Trail Regional Hospital. And if you ever go and try and park in the multi-hundred-year parking lot of the Trail Regional Hospital, you know why we need transit there. It's not even in the plans. They can't afford it. So we have to change that. We have to make that kind of a project viable and feasible right away. The reason is because of that formula, local governments would have to raise property taxes to do it, and it's very difficult to raise property taxes. The way the country is set up, the federal government has the most money, the province has lots of money, and the cities, which have to deliver the services, often have the least money, and they have to go and get grants. So I won't talk about that. But the net effect is, if we go to our local politicians and say, we want more buses, they say, yeah, there's not much we can do about it. Why are you talking to us? Well, we should talk to them because they can be strong advocates for us with the province and with the federal government. They should be saying, my citizens want buses. We need a lot more buses. And I know we do. We did a table outside the Kootenay Co-op in Nelson. We said, what about a BC bus, BC-wide, and all this? Everybody who came up said, sign me up. Where do I sign? This is a no-brainer. We need this, of course. It's really quite popular, and for good reason. So, but we have to address the province. If we build it, they will come. There's about 1 million rides a year in the West Kootenay region. It's a lot. There's 1 million. We could easily double that if we increased the number of routes and the frequency, and the fact that you could get there and back again in the same day. I talked to, years ago, I talked to, John will remember this, we were talking in New Denver to some junior high students, these girls, and I said to them, what's the main thing that New Denver could use to improve the environment? They said, more buses to Nelson. But they also meant more buses home, because you can take a bus to Nelson, but if you miss the one bus back, you're hooped. So I can see parents saying, no, you can't take the bus to Nelson because you might miss the bus back. But what about taking a bus with your bicycle on it and going to Fernie to visit a friend? Or taking a bus to Vancouver with your bicycle on it and getting off with your bicycle in Vancouver. These would be great things to do. We just had a provincial election, you may have noticed. Busing got talked about a little bit, not very much, unfortunately. But there was some people talking about free transit, which of course is a great idea. If we put more routes, we could probably double the number of rides in the Kootenays. If we made it free, we could probably triple the number of people taking buses and reduce that much in emissions. So, and I want to say about the price is most of the money that we collect through your transit fares is spent on the process of collecting those transit fares. It's expensive to account it and make sure it's all, just tape it over, make it free, and more people take the bus. Now, there was one thing that I want to note, that there was a promise, and I think we really have to act on it, is to connect the province with an expanded express bus service, building on our successful BC North bus service, including a new fleet of express buses between key hubs. And it would be great to have this. I want to point out, though, that when Greyhound left the province, the provincial government, Greyhound just packed it up and left. Nobody cried too much because the service has gotten quite terrible anyway. But we do need that kind of service. It did leave a lot of people high and dry. But the government said the private sector and business will have to step up to fill that void. And it has. There are some routes come up, but not very many. They'll only serve the profitable, frequent routes. They won't serve the remote routes. They can't make any money doing that. And it's expensive. To take the private bus from Nelson to Vancouver costs $180. It's on a small bus. It takes a long time, and there's no bathroom on the bus. We need a coach. So now is the time to tell our leaders that we need to expand transit as a climate measure, as an affordability measure, and as a justice measure, so everybody has a chance to get around in BC. I'm not going to say too much about this, but we have to communicate with our politicians and let them know, and I'm going to urge you all to do that and talk about buses, and be sure to it's only with a lot of public push that are they going to keep their promises and build us a bigger busing system. It's not going to be going easy. It's going to be an uphill battle. At West Kootenay Transit Action.ca, you can find these addresses and more. And I'm going to ask, sign on and join us and talk about buses. And if you get a chance, take a bus. It's great. You get to meet your neighbors. It's a nice, relaxing way to travel. Talk about buses and put on some pressure. So join us there, and we'll see about getting more buses all across the rest of BC. Thanks very much.